we're going to continue on to our next speaker, and then right after this, we're going to take a break. All right? So thank you for patiently waiting here. Our next speaker is Marty Cutrone from Gateways, and he will be best placed. Marty, come on up. Sharing about the rights and limitations of sharing your faith within the public school system. As an educator, Gateways has been around for decades, training teachers on how to do just that and how to understand the ed codes that allow you that privilege within the classroom. So, Marty, please come on up.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
It's so great to see all of you here this morning, and I am just profoundly grateful that we've been invited to be here and be part of this. I think about our great partnership with Protect Our Kids. I know Eric Buer, our president, has spoken a number of times at some of these events, and we really feel a kinship and a partnership. And I'm also just want to acknowledge the educators who are here in the room. We deeply respect and admire what you do. The courage you display. Great educating our children. It is a difficult job. I also see a couple of really good friends at Gateways of Better Education out there in the audience. Linda Cohn, Shirley, and Brenda. Many of you are aware of Gateways of Better Education and some of the resources we bring. And so this morning, I'm just very much delighted to bring some information to you about how you can navigate this process legally and appropriately in the public school setting. For the past 35 or 40 years, and probably longer as Mark described, essentially a generation, public school educators have egregiously been misinformed and in some cases lied to about bringing the Bible and Christianity into the classroom. Educators have been told that they and their students must leave their faith expressions at the front entrance gate of the school, that they must not venture into this forbidden zone or risk violating the sacred cow of secularism, that is the separation of church and state. Today, most teachers operate in confusion and oftentimes fear about how to handle religious expression on campus. This has had a chilling and negative effect on both educators and students, and in some cases, entire school districts that have paid a substantial price for their unconstitutional missteps. I'm sure many of you in this room are familiar with the Coach Kennedy case up in Bremerton, Washington. That's the coach that took a knee at the football field after the football game and paid the price with his job because he refused to stop doing that, his constitutional rights. That case ended up in the Supreme Court, and it cost that district $5 million. And here's perhaps the saddest outcome of recent years. Many teachers of faith have left public school education here in California because they have been forced to lie to students about their gender identity, withhold student behavioral health information from parents, forced to accommodate woke ideology in its various forms, and relevant to my presentation today, told to suppress their biblical worldview. The oppression has become untenable. Despite this ball of confusion, as the Temptations once sang, those of you in the room remember the Temptations, Ball of Confusion? A great song. There is hope, and I have really good news for you. There are real and reliable guidelines that are available to teachers and students to help them live out their faith legally and competently without stepping on litigation landmines, which I intend to cover in some detail this morning. And not only that, you will learn that here in California, teachers are expected to teach about the Bible and Christianity and discuss the tenets of the gospel message. You heard that right. I said expected. So get ready to have your jaws drop, and I'll get started. As we meet with administrators and educators across this country, we start with this premise. that the often overlooked asset that students bring to school with them is their religious faith. Oftentimes, in this environment of equity and inclusion, that's the part that's left out. And so what I intend to do here is present to you some empirical evidence that bears that out, that backs up this claim. What we do is we present the research that backs this up. This is a 2021 U.S. Department of Health and Human Services national survey, and this is what they reveal. 63% of students ages 12 to 17 indicate that their religious beliefs are a very important part of their life. That means it's an important part of their identity, who they are. And we know the school systems and districts are geared up to support that, their student identity. Here's another study. I hope. There we go. This is a study that comes out of the Graduate School of Education, Stanford University, on how religion helps learning success. There. Being religious helps adolescents at the middle and high school level because they have learned the very habits and that public schools are structured to reward. That is conscientiousness and cooperation. Now, we know that not all students act this way. You know, we had a teacher contact us one time and inform us that she had a student in her that attends her church, and he acts a whole lot differently on Sunday than he does on Monday. And so what we want to do is make sure that we introduce that Sunday behavior into the Monday through Friday behavior. Yes. So we point out that there are two distinctive and important communities in every school district. That is the faith community and the school community, and they're both working hard to build into students these character traits: kindness, respectfulness, cooperation, conscientiousness, self-control, and so forth. And when they come together, and when they're respecting one another, when they're cooperating together, it actually supercharges the learning experience for every student. Here's another study, an enormous study by Dr. William James at California State University, Long Beach, which happens to be my alma mater. Anybody here from Cal State Long Beach? Go Beach! He did a meta-analysis of 30 studies involving over 1 million students, and they revealed this. Of all the variables under study for their relationship with reducing the achievement gap, religious faith had the highest effect size for reducing the achievement gap. That's very significant. When we support a child's religious expression in public schools, they actually perform better. So my question is, you want to go back? Okay. Yeah, that's pretty significant. Yeah. That's a jaw dropper in and of itself.
What year?
This is fairly recently, within the last 5 years. So the crucial question is, how do we intentionally welcome students' religious faith in public schools? We're not talking about teachers that are aware of the law, that will allow it when it happens. That's not very effective. I was talking to one of the teachers here earlier, and she explained to me that students are in fear of discussing their faith, in fear of being reprimanded or shut down. What we need is teachers to intentionally inform students that they are welcome to share their faith expression when it's germane to the topic. So what we do is we present the U.S. Department of Education's guidance on constitutionally protected prayer and religious expression in public schools. And this was established in 1995 under the Clinton administration. How many of you are familiar with this guidance? Yeah, a few of you that are part of our Gateways team here. This was just recently released. The most recent release was May of 2023 by Dr. Cardona, in which he said, an e-blast that went to every educator and administrator in the country. He said, I encourage you to widely disseminate this guidance among educators, students, and parents in order to ensure that all are well informed regarding their constitutional rights. And what we often find is that educators are telling us they never heard about this. And so they remain uninformed. So we have taken up the challenge. We have taken up the mantle of our small nonprofit Christian organization, we are determined to help them do this. So the Department of Education's guidance that I mentioned was issued in 1995, and then it was by law to be updated every 2 years. Well, that happened for the first 2 iterations. Then it wasn't updated for 17 years. Our president, Eric Buer, then began to lobby the Department of Education to incorporate the updates. It wasn't until the Trump administration first run during 2017-2018 that, lo and behold, towards 2019, at the end of 2019, he got a call from Betsy DeVos's office, and she informed Eric that they were going to incorporate all of his recommendations into the new release of the guidance. He was invited back to the White House on January 16th of 2020. President Trump, along with a group of educators in that room, released the new guidance. Now, does anybody know the importance of January 16th? You know what national day that is? Yeah, I didn't know it either. I spent much of my career working for the Boy Scouts of America, God and country, and I didn't know that January 16th was National Religious Freedom Day. So on that day, the new guidance was released, and that began the process of us launching the Free to Speak campaign. But unfortunately, as we all remember what happened, just a few weeks after that, everything shut down. Across the world turned on its axis, and children weren't in schools anymore. So we took a pause on launching the Free to Speak campaign until just about a few years later. And more recently, we have developed a program, actually a training called the Respect Project. That is, in essence, a non-sectarian division of the Gateways of Education. We offer a 30-minute training module to school districts to incorporate into their professional development portal that helps teachers understand how to legally and appropriately create faith and welcoming environments in their classrooms. We've got about 20 school districts across the United States in the last couple of years that have actually done that. They've actually incorporated that training in. This next part here, okay, there we go. A number of years ago, because of our relationship, a really good relationship that we had with the Orange County Department of Education, Eric Buer, our president, connected with Dr. Alma Harris, and he actually posted a 5-minute and a 3-minute training video on teachers' religious rights. And that's been there for a number of years. And now we have incorporated this 5-minute training that I'm going to show you here. And I'm not sure if the video is going to work. If it does, great. But we'll see. And now teachers, as part of that 30-minute training module, can see this video. And it's really well done, and it's very effective. So we're gonna show that video. Hopefully it works. Wonderful.
My scarf is a constant reminder of my heritage and my values.
The yarmulke belonged to my grandfather. He gave it to me for my bar mitzvah, and I wear it every day.
I want people to know that my faith defines who I am. Imagine a world where we couldn't live out our faith on a daily basis. The First Amendment allows these students and teachers to do this confidently in the public school environment. It's important we understand these freedoms to empower our students and each other to embrace our inherent rights. Since 1995, the U.S. Department of Education has published and periodically updates guidance on students and teachers' religious freedom in public schools. It is therefore important that all public schools follow this guidance. Religious freedom is protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. There are 3 key reasons religious freedom is so essential to a society, even for people who aren't religious. And it's important that we all understand these reasons. First, religious freedom is a vital part of helping create a harmonious and civil society. It teaches us to respect each other's freedom to live according to our diverse beliefs. And our society benefits when people are motivated by their faith to do good things in their communities, such as feeding the poor, building hospitals, and many other social services. Second, it puts limits on government, recognizing that matters of faith are beyond the government's sphere of authority in a free society. Third, it is a basic human right. So let's take a deeper look into what respecting religious freedom looks like in public schools, according to the federal guidance. Students have many ways they can express their faith in school.
Students may express their religious perspectives in homework, artwork, and other written and oral assignments.
If it's relevant to the assignment, I can express my religious perspective on the topic.
Students can pray with classmates in the same way that they can talk with them.
During my free time, and not during classroom activities and instruction.
This includes praying before a meal.
Students can read their Bible, Torah, Quran, or other religious materials when they have free time.
Students can give religious literature to their classmates in the same way the school allows them to give non-religious things to others.
We can also talk to each other about our faith.
Students can wear clothing with religious messages if the school allows them to wear clothing with other messages.
Students can organize religious clubs and announcer meetings just like any other club.
Students can express their faith at a school event.
Like a talent show, a sporting event, or a graduation ceremony. If they control what they're going to say instead of being told what to say, and they want to express their faith, they can do it.
Students can be excused by their parents for religious reasons, if they can also be excused for non-religious needs.
When you explain to students the religious freedoms they have in your class, it promotes a diverse and respectful environment and removes confusion students of faith and students of no faith may have in your school. As school employees, you also have religious freedom on campus, though there are limits due to your role as a government employee.
The First Amendment prohibits you from encouraging or discouraging prayer and from actively participating in such activity with your students unless it is clear that it is not in your official capacity.
You may take part in religious activities such as prayer with colleagues during your workday when you have time for other personal tasks.
We have a small group of faculty who like to study about our faith during our lunch breaks every Wednesday.
Public schools may not provide religious instruction like a church does, but you can teach about religion.
When it comes to religious holidays, although public schools may teach about these holidays, including their religious aspects, and may celebrate the secular aspects, schools may not observe holidays as religious events.
It's important that my students understand the culture of our community and they feel affirmed when I acknowledge their holidays in the classroom. The students learn to respect the celebrations and traditions of their classmates.
Religious freedom is an important part of America.
Even for those who aren't religious, when we all understand it, it promotes respect,
Diversity.
And a better society.
And when we protect this right,
It will make schools better
for everyone.
That's a 5-minute video that's incorporated into the 30-minute Respect Project training. It's also, of course, posted on the Orange County Department of Education's superintendent's page. And we continue to be thankful to Dr. Stephen Bean. Now we'll share with you a 3-minute companion video that you teachers can show in your classroom to your students. And remember, this is posted on the Orange County Department of Education. That means you can post it you can show it in your classroom.
My scarf is a constant reminder of my heritage and my values.
This yarmulke belonged to my grandfather. He gave it to me for my bar mitzvah, and I wear it every day.
How do people know that my faith defines who I am?
Did you know that in many countries around the world, expressing your religious beliefs is against the law unless the government approves it?
But in the United States, I can. I can. And I can.
Religious freedom is so important that it is protected by the First Amendment in America's Constitution. So, the United States Department of Education released guidance to help us understand what religious freedom looks like in our schools.
I can express my religious perspective in my classwork, artwork, homework, and my class discussions. If it's relevant to the assignment, I can express my religious perspective on the topic.
I can play with my classmates, not when I'm supposed to be working on an assignment, but when I have free time. I can also pray before a meal.
I can read my Torah.
My Quran, my Bible, or other religious materials when I have free time. And I can give religious literature to my classmates in the same way my school allows me to give non-religious things to my friends. And I can talk with them about my faith.
I can wear clothing with religious messages if my school allows me to wear clothing with other messages on it.
I can organize a religious club and announce my meeting just like any other club.
I can express my faith at a school event, like a talent show, a sporting event, and a graduation ceremony, if I control what I'm going to say, instead of being told what to say, and I want to express my faith, I can do it.
Religious freedom is an important part of America.
Even for those who are religious.
When we all understand it,
It promotes respect, diversity,
In a better society. And when we protect this right, it will make schools better for everyone. Yeah.
So just showing these videos that just brings clarity to your students, freeing them up to know that they can express their faith when it's germane to the topic in an appropriate way. Part of our training also includes some information and practical ideas that we offer to teachers to know how to do this. It's not necessarily intuitive to every educator when you're in the classroom. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of fear and confusion about, can I engage these conversations? How do I do it? Well, we provide some very practical suggestions. For example, a teacher issues an assignment in the classroom and may start with just this premise for students. If your religious beliefs are relevant to this assignment, feel free to include your perspective on the topic. That is affirming, that is encouraging, not endorsing. Or they might say something like this: I like how you've connected your faith to your thinking on the topic. Again, affirming. Or they might affirm a student by just simply saying, hey, that's an interesting perspective. You should include that in your essay. So now as I'm kind of wrapping up, coming down the home stretch here, I wanted to share the following slide. And I think these next series of slides will surprise you. Teaching about the Bible and Christianity is academically expected in California. Okay, get ready for your jaws to drop. Here's the first one. In the state of California, the history, social science content of the state academic standards, sixth graders are expected to note the origins of Christianity in the Jewish messianic prophecies, the life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth as described in the New Testament, and the contribution of St. Paul the Apostle to the definition and spread of Christian beliefs. For example, the belief in the Trinity, resurrection, and salvation. Now that part in the parentheses is what? That is the gospel message in a public school classroom that you're expected to teach. Here's another one. This is in 7th grade, social science content standards. Describe the theological and political and economic ideas of the major figures during the Reformation. For example, Desiderius Masterus, Martin Luther, John Calvin, and William Tyndale. So when you think about this opportunity, you are clearly encouraged to introduce and discuss these theologians that help to shape our Protestant biblical worldview. What an exciting thing to do, to bring into a classroom. Here's another 7th grade social science. This is framework from 2016. Through selections from biblical literature. Let's stop right there. Biblical literature. I think we're talking about the Bible there. Students will learn about the teachings of Jesus that advocate compassion, justice, and love for others. He taught that God loved all creation, regardless of their status or circumstance, and that humans should reflect that love in relation to one another. Jesus shared the Jewish belief in one God, but he added the promise of eternal salvation to those who believe in him as their Savior. Imagine this message in a public school classroom by a teacher these students respect. I mean, it's extraordinary. So I want to also mention the fact that we offer to educators not only information about the standards, and incidentally, we have a team of volunteers that have been for years researching not only California, but every state in the union. So we have all state standards. You can order California's from us absolutely free. We'll ship it to you. We'll mail it to you. Hard copy. And you can have your own copy. But we've done it for every state in the United States. It's really remarkable how much information is there about where the Bible and Christianity intersect the curriculum. So we also provide a couple of what we call the Bible like a textbook. And we've created these lessons, actually a lesson plan, that you can incorporate during the Christmas season. It's a detailed lesson plan that also includes that during the Easter celebration, a full lesson plan on the resurrection, the story of Jesus. These are permitted in your classroom because you're teaching as part of this curriculum from the state standards. And if you want to get copies of that, we're happy to send you those as well.
Question. Is that for what grade level?
You really could use it for all. I mean, obviously, when you look at the content, it's probably going to be something around 5th, 6th grade up.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could probably incorporate and language specific and create it for 3rd and 4th graders as well. I'm confident you could take that material.
Standards that you gave were more middle school, right? So I was wondering if that
applies. Yeah, it does apply more to middle school, but you'll find that the state standards research we've done starts kindergarten through 12th grade. So we have state standards throughout the entire K-12. Yeah. Here's 8th grade, English language arts standard for reading, writing, and communication. Analyze how a modern work of fiction draws on themes, patterns, events, or character types from myths, traditions, stories, or religious works such as the Bible. There it is again, including describing how the material is rendered new. And here's the last one. This is the Common Core Standards, reading, writing, communication. Analyze how an author draws on and transforms source material in a specific work. For example, how Shakespeare treats a theme or a topic from Ovid or the Bible, or how a later author draws on a play from Shakespeare. And this is just talking about stories of symbolism and metaphor that you can incorporate into that English curriculum. And here's where I want to wrap up. This is kind of our final bit of information here that I'm excited to share with you. We have as I mentioned before, there's a 30-minute training module called the Respect Project. We go directly to school districts with that. However, for Christian educators, we have created a 3.5 to 4 hour seminar called Faith, Freedom, and the Public Schools. Now, that is a deep dive into the first 4 segments are on the law, and the last 4 segments are on the practical application. And what we've done here is we've now created this just recently, these teacher lunch and learns. We have teacher lunch and learns happening across the United States. Teachers are taking this 3.5 hour training. We have developed now 20 sessions, about 5 to 10 minute segments you can do during lunch, meeting with your colleagues. You can take a walk through the Faith Freedom Public School Seminar And we offer that to you absolutely free. You can sign up online. You can go to that QR code, and you can sign up for that training. We are now in 8 Christian universities where we offer this training to the School of Education. They actually pay a fee for that. And now we've trained over 25,000 university students in about the last 14 years that are learning this information. Really excited. And we don't want to just leave it there at the university level. We want to make that available to you or any of your colleagues. So contact us and we'll make it available to you. So here's some of the material that's in here. Teaching about the Bible and Christianity is legally supported and academically expected. This is part of the legal side of this. It's culturally accurate and morally imperative. We point out that also creating faith welcoming classrooms. This is more of the practical side of things. Strategies to integrate biblical worldview in your classroom. Teaching about holidays, as I mentioned before. Encouraging students to express their faith. And finally, cultivating character. So, this is valuable information. These are resources that we make available to you absolutely free. Contact us. Incidentally, I've also provided, we can send you, these are pocket brochures that you can have in your classroom. You can share, if you're part of a youth group at your church, you can give it to them and ask them to share it with their schoolmates, classmates. I put some on the table over here if you want to take one. You can order as many as you like from us, just to equip yourself and your students. That's all I have. George, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Marty. All right. We're going to take a break for 15 minutes. It's 11:15. We're going to come back at 11:30. There's a lot of snacks and goodies in the back. For those that want to use the restrooms, they're right out here on my right-hand side. So we'll be back at 11:30. So the next presentation is on the steps to take when things go bad. I'm sure things don't always go perfectly well in the classroom setting. And so as an educator, we want to be equipped with what steps you should be taking. So with that, I'd like to invite Ms. Julianne Fleischer from Advocates for Faith and Freedom to come up here, and she'll give the next part of the presentation. And then after that, we're going to go into our panel.
All right. Well, I just again want to thank all of you for taking time on your Saturday to come and just hear and listen from so many warriors. I know that's been said throughout this morning. This room is full of warriors that have been fighting battles for a long time. You all are, what I would say, are on the front lines. You are in the classrooms, you're at school board meetings. You guys are working with students, working with administrators, and so you are on the front lines fighting these battles. And so this segment is hopefully going to be an encouragement to you, and then also just some practical steps that you all can take when you do find yourself in a difficult legal situation. I don't think it's a matter of if it happens. I think it's just a matter of when that's going to happen. And so I want to start actually with a passage from Daniel 6. You all may know the story of Daniel in the lion's den, but I want to start with verse 4, and it'll be up there, but I'm going to read a few verses. And it says, then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling government affairs, but they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn. He was faithful, always responsible, and completely trustworthy. So they concluded, our only chance of finding grounds for accusing Daniel will be in connection with the rules of his religion. So the administrators and high officers went to the king and said, Long live King Darius. We are all in agreement. We administrators, officials, high officers, advisors, and governors, that the king should make a law that will be strictly enforced. Give orders that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions. And now, your majesty, issue and sign this law so that it cannot be changed, an official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked. So King Darius signed the law. But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down, as usual, in his upstairs room with its windows open toward Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God. Then the officials went together to Daniel's house and found him praying and asking for God's help. And when I was reading through this passage, I thought, and maybe for some of you guys who are hearing this, how often you feel targeted because of the beliefs and convictions that you have. You go into the proverbial lion's den every single day you go to work. You are surrounded by individuals that have not only different beliefs, but those beliefs are, frankly, shoved down your throats. We talk a lot about the LGBTQ agenda that is everywhere. It's talked about as if, it's just a normal thing that everyone should accept. And it's as if, I don't even want to say as if, it is a target on your convictions and your beliefs. And just as Daniel, I love what it says, that when he heard that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual. He did not change his convictions. He did not change his actions. He went and did what he had done as usual and followed and walked in his relationship with the Lord. And so I want to encourage all of you. The enemy is going to make you feel like you're the crazy one, that you are the extremist, that you have the wild ideas. But that's a lie from the enemy, meant to intimidate and to isolate you. When you stand for truth and righteousness, at the end of the day, we live to honor God, and you've already won the battle, you've already won the victory. There may be some legal battles, and you may lose those legal battles, but I much rather stand before God and say, my conscience is clear. I honor you in the decisions that I made, in the words that I said, how I treated my colleagues, how I treated my students, how I responded to parent concerns. I honored the Lord. And so I just want to encourage you with that. Daniel, as you all know, ended up in a lion's den, and the Lord protected and covered him. And so the Lord will protect and cover you. That may mean that there's still sacrifices. You may lose your job. You'll hear from Jessica. She lost her job. That's no one wants to be faced with loss of employment. That's a huge sacrifice and burden. But, and I'm sure I'll let Jessica speak to this, the Lord has rewarded and has been faithful and continues to be faithful. And so I just want to encourage you all with that. So I want to address some of the common challenges that you all may face, and you probably know even better than I do, some of the challenges that you have faced in the classroom or while working for a school district. So just some bullet points, I'll kind of just briefly touch on them. But I have curriculum requirements, so maybe being compelled to teach something that conflicts with your religious beliefs. Pressure to affirm beliefs that you don't hold, which I would say would probably fall in, this LGBTQ curriculum and even the PACE training that was mentioned earlier. Pronoun and identity conflicts, restrictions on religious expression, even outside of school. We've heard from different educators who will contact our law firm and say, I posted this on my personal social media page, and now I'm being questioned about it. Jessica also experienced that. It was things that she had posted on her own social media page that led to her lawsuit. Hiding information from parents, boys and girls sports and spaces. I know this is, just a very brief snapshot of probably the wide breadth of issues that you all face, and you're faced with decisions on what to do in those situations. Following Jessica's lawsuit, we launched a campaign called Teachers Don't Lie. And Bob touched on this earlier, but teachers don't lie. That shouldn't be a earth-shattering concept. Teachers don't lie. They shouldn't lie. But the concept behind it, or the points behind it, was that teachers don't lie to parents. Teachers don't lie to students. And teachers don't lie to themselves, and meaning that they don't have to deny their convictions and their faith in order to keep their job. We're so blessed to live in a nation and under a constitution that ensures that when you go to work, you're not leaving your beliefs and your faith and your convictions at what they call the schoolhouse gates. You don't have to abandon your faith in order to show up to work. I know that there was a video on the next slide. I don't know if that can launch. This video is just a brief snapshot that we launched. It's of Jessica following our campaign for Teachers Don't Lie.
A former Group Valley High School teacher speaking out after she said she was fired for not hiding administrative transitions from parents.
And I said, are you asking me to lie to parents? And they said yes. I'm Jessica Tapia. In 2022, I took a stand for truth. I was a PE teacher who was directed to refer to students by whatever gender they felt they were, withhold that information from their parents, and allow boys into the girls' locker room. I tried to find ways to keep my job and work with the school district for a resolution. But because I refused to lie to kids about their identity, because I refused to lie to their parents, and because I refused to put kids in harm's way, they fired me. I chose not to remain silent, but take a stand for truth. After seeking out counsel from Charlie Kirk and Pastor John Gibbs, they referred me to Advocates for Faith and Freedom, a nonprofit law firm dedicated to protecting constitutional and religious liberty. Advocates took on this legal battle for me, which resulted in a victory. Now, along with Advocates, we're launching Teachers Don't Lie, a program that helps teachers facing similar challenges find legal help and resources they need. The fight isn't over. As the battle rages on against teachers who uphold truth, your support is crucial. Please help us protect these teachers in the courts by donating today. We're blowing the whistle on the lies.
So we launched this campaign, Teachers Don't Lie, and on our website we provide numerous resources, a lot of what I'm going to cover today, but I would encourage you all to go and check out those resources, use them, put them in your tool belt for when the time comes and you're faced with a difficult situation and you don't know what to do. I would encourage you to check out those resources. But going back again to this principle that teachers don't lie. You all chose to enter into this profession as a calling. I hope with this passion for children, for raising up children to be our next generation, our next leaders who are going to be working and contributing to our society. And unfortunately, the way our education system is set up is it's pushing out the very teachers and administrators that we want teaching our kids. I can't tell you how many times I will talk to a teacher or an educator who will call me and say, you know what, I've thrown in the towel, I'm quitting, I'm leaving this profession, it's too difficult. What can I do? And I beg with them, don't quit. You need to fight and stay in there. This is exactly what they want, the other side wants, is to push you out of your job. And we need warriors to be in the school district fighting for our kids, fighting really for parents too, including parents, because what's going to end up happening is we're going to get educators who don't care about your kids or our kids, but who only care about pushing an ideology that is completely contrary to truth. And so it's easy for me to stand up here as the lawyer who's used to fighting legal battles and saying, stand up, fight for this. But I also recognize that it's jobs are on the line. You have families. There are other outside concerns that would impact any potential legal battle. And again, I want to encourage you all that your convictions and your faith are more important than anything else. And that is why law firms like ours exist. We're pro bono, and so we hope to be able to stand beside teachers and educators and take that financial burden off if it comes to any type of litigation. I want to walk you through requesting a religious accommodation. A lot of times I'm actually surprised that educators don't know that they can do this. They hear a policy or a requirement that is adopted by their school district, or they're told it's state law, and they think that there's nothing I can do. I want to keep my job, and so I'm going to follow this policy, or I'm going to adhere to this, and there's no options. And so there are absolutely options, and one of those is requesting a religious accommodation, which I know has kind of briefly been mentioned. Ms. West talked about it and kind of her process and what led up to her lawsuit. But under Title VII, you have the right to request a religious accommodation to a policy that conflicts with your sincerely held religious beliefs. So the first step in doing that is obviously identifying what the conflict is. What is the policy or directive that you are being required to comply with that conflicts with your religious beliefs? It could be a policy that says you have to refer to students by their preferred pronouns. You may be a PE teacher and there's a male athlete on the female sports team and they're using the female locker room, and you have an objection to allowing males in a female space. It could be that you're required to lead the LGBTQ club. It could be any number of things, but you identify the conflict. And then you make a written request. And that request can be an email, it can be a written letter, identifying what that objection, what that conflict is, and how that conflicts with your sincerely held religious beliefs. Now, sometimes we'll have educators contact us and say, can you review this request? Is this sufficient? Oftentimes what we see is educators are not detailed enough. You don't have to justify your religious beliefs, but you do need to give an explanation for why the conflict exists with your beliefs. So if you believe that God created males and females with distinct differences, and you are now being required to ignore that religious belief, you need to identify that, provide scripture, provide as much support as you can, detailed in that, in identifying your religious belief. And then also in this accommodation request, if you can come up with some accommodations. So for instance, for PE teachers, you might not want to refer to that student by their preferred name. So I know someone mentioned it, you can refer to them by their last name. That would be an accommodation where you now don't have to use their preferred name, but it's just the same as identifying them. You can refer to them by their last name. Coming up with some options. It's not required for you to create the accommodation request, but it does show your school district that you're operating in good faith. You want to work with the school district to come up with a solution that works not only for you, but also for the school district. And then also providing supporting information. It's not necessary to provide a letter from your pastor or your church, but it is important to, again, clearly explain what those religious beliefs are, what those objections are, providing biblical references. Again, I know Jessica might share this, but she was questioned about her religious beliefs, and quite frankly, I use that as an opportunity to share the gospel. If they're going to ask you questions, share the gospel with them. Once you submit that religious accommodation request, you would then engage in an interactive process. And by law, this is required. The school district is required to engage with you, have a discussion. It cannot be an outright denial of your accommodation request. They're required to meet with you, to talk with you, they themselves should be offering some accommodation possibilities. And they need to be operating in good faith, in meeting with you and discussing that. Something that I would encourage you all to do is to document everything. You all know how important a paper trail is, and a paper trail is so important. Sometimes administrators will say, we're going to have this meeting over the phone or over Zoom. That's fine. Request a written summary after that meeting. If they say, no, we don't provide a written summary, say, okay, you provide the written summary. So following that meeting, say, dear so-and-so, today we had an interactive meeting. This is what was discussed. This is my understanding of what you're going to do. This is my understanding of what I'm supposed to do. Have that paper trail so that later on, it doesn't turn into a he said, she said, an administrator saying, we followed our policy. So you can request anything you want to be in writing. And if they don't provide a writing, you send the writing to them, and then they can object to the contents of it.
Or record it.
Or record it. So it's very important to have as much documentation as you can. Keep a timeline. The timeline is very important, especially if it does escalate to a further litigation. Keep that timeline, communications, who you spoke with, what that person said.
Can you record it without their knowledge, though?
No, thank you. Good distinction. Yes, in California, you do need permission to record it. So you could say, hey, I'm going to record this meeting, this session. So yes, thank you for that clarification. That's very important. So you're going to go through this interactive process. The hopeful outcome is that the school district, the school administrators will say, we respect your religious beliefs and we will accommodate your religious beliefs. That's the hope. That is the best outcome. If that does not happen, that is where we step in. You can contact us, but then it needs to be escalated. So if your religious accommodation request is rejected or denied, you would then file either an internal complaint, depending on the claims. And I don't want to get too much into the weeds of the UCP, Universal Complaint Procedure, but also filing a complaint with the EEOC and letting the EEOC launch an investigation into the school's handling of your religious accommodation requests. This is really in reference to if there's a policy or directive that you object to, that you can't follow because of your religious beliefs. There's also the whole side of it where if you are being discriminated against because of your free speech or because of your religious beliefs. So you're not necessarily even asking for an accommodation request, but the school district is trying to censor you. We represent a sign language aide in San Gabriel Unified School District who she was fired because she had her personal bag said Trump on the front. That's all it said. It just said Trump. It was red, white, and blue, and it just said Trump. And her school principal said, you're not allowed to bring that bag to campus. And so she asked, can you give me the law or the policy that says I can't bring this bag to campus? Well, there's no official written policy, but that's political speech. You can't bring it. And she said, well, this is my personal bag. I'm not talking to students about it. And quite frankly, it just says Trump. It could refer to any aspect of the Trump domain. And school administrators continue to tell her you can't bring this backpack. Meanwhile, she also had a water bottle that had stickers. It had stickers of Ronald Reagan. It had a picture of Donald Trump giving his classic thumbs up. Had some religious stickers on it. And one of the other aides in the classroom moved her bottle from they had like a little desk where all the teachers' aides place their belongings. She moved the bottle out of reach. And so our client, she couldn't reach the bottle, and so she told the aide, don't touch my belongings. And the aide said, I don't want him, referring to Donald Trump, looking at me. He's taunting me. And so our client reported that to the principal, and the principal said, oh, you also can't bring that water bottle to campus. And so, again, our client requested a copy of a policy, justify it. She was willing to comply if they could justify this request. Well, they couldn't provide a policy. The only policy that they could provide was that employees couldn't wear political attire. And so she said, what part of this is political attire? It's my water bottle and my personal bag. They, again, couldn't respond to that. And so she continued to bring her water bottle and backpack. And on the day that she was escorted off campus by police, the same colleague that moved her water bottle, flipped over a desk that had the water bottle in the backpack. And it's all recorded of her having a breakdown about this Trump backpack and Trump water bottle. So we ended up filing a lawsuit on behalf of our client. We're still engaged in litigation. But this is one of those examples where the district told our client this was policy, this was law. And when you hear that, you think, okay, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to cause any issues. And so it would have been very easy for her to just say, okay, I'm going to leave my backpack at home. I'm going to leave this water bottle at home. But because she understood that there's something not quite right, she may not have known all the First Amendment principles and the legality of it, but it was enough to raise a concern of this isn't right. And why is this person over here that may be offended by a Trump sticker allowed to have this reaction in front of students and allowed to get away with that behavior? And so there's the religious accommodation side of it, but there's also these other concerns and issues that you all may face. And so again, it's important to stand for your convictions, stand for those. When an administrator says this is law, this is state law, you're bound by state law, that should be your first kind of red flag of, okay, what are they trying to hide or what do they not know? Oftentimes, they quite frankly just don't know the law. And so they spew this is law or this is district policy and think that they can get away with it. But you all are much smarter than that. So one of the important things to do is also recognize that there are statute of limitations when it comes to bringing claims. So we had, especially now that we're a few years out from COVID-19 and a lot of the issues that occurred with COVID-19, we had former teachers or educators contact us and say, I was fired because I refused to get the vaccine. Do I have any legal rights? The answer is yes, but 2 years ago or 3 years ago, because their statute of limitations have now expired. So it's really important that as soon as something happens to you, to contact an attorney to make sure that you don't pass or miss that statute of limitations that would then prevent you from taking any further legal action. And then just something, trigger events, if you receive a notice, disciplinary action, if your school district launches a lawsuit, those are all trigger events that you want to make sure that you consult with an attorney fairly quickly so that you don't miss those statute of limitations. And then I just briefly want to just end with the strategies for strength and wisdom. Again, I recognize that you all are in the front lines. You are going to be the ones that have to make the decision of, is this the hill that I'm going to die on? Pray for discernment daily. Ask the Lord to lead and guide your actions and your decisions. Build a supportive community. Surround yourself with trusted colleagues. I'm glad that we're able to gather today so you can see that there are other like-minded educators. You may feel like you're the only one at your school or in your school district, but there are others who are like-minded, who are in this battle, who are here to support you. So find those trusted colleagues. Your church hopefully has a way to support and encourage you all. Again, document interactions carefully and seek legal help. There are multiple organizations. Obviously, I'm biased towards Advocates for Faith and Freedom, but there are many nonprofit organizations who exist to defend your constitutional rights pro bono. Because again, we want to take that financial burden off of you so that you can stand by your convictions. It's not easy going through the legal process. Ms. West talked about this is a 3-year battle and still ongoing, and that's a huge sacrifice. And so being able to take on a lawsuit without the concern of legal fees or paying an attorney would hopefully help encourage you in that fight. And then lastly, just want to again remind you that God is sovereign in hostile environments. He doesn't stop being sovereign when you're in the den, when you're in the lion's den. He remains sovereign. He remains faithful. And I have written here, faithful presence, not fearful silence. Be faithful where God has planted you. Be faithful in the work that He has called you to. And don't allow the enemy or others to back you into fearful silence. There's nothing to be gained by being fearful or by being silent. And then I just want to end with Psalm 27:14. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Thank you.
With that, we're going to invite our panel speakers up here, and we're going to start our Q&A session. So, Mr. Bob Tyler, Ms. Mari Barke, Ms. Brenda Lebsack, and Ms. Jessica Tapia.
Ms. Fleischer, Julianne.
Oh, okay. So, Julianne, you have to come right back up.
Oh, I see. That's a good show.
All right. So, who has the first question? All at once. All right.
Considering that California has strictest of our religious exemptions, like when it comes to like vaccines, do you think that we could make a religious exemption permanently placed into the California Constitution, or would it be legal for President Trump to make executive order religious exemptions across the nation?
Sure. So we are, Advocates is actually currently involved in a lawsuit that challenges SB 277, which is the state law that removes personal belief objections to elementary mandated vaccinations. So we are currently involved in a lawsuit. We just filed our opening brief at the Ninth Circuit. And, there's a myriad of medical exemptions that are allowed for vaccinations. There's other, homeless children are exempted from the mandatory vaccination for a certain period of time. Military families are exempted from the mandatory vaccination. So there's a lot of exemptions, except when it comes to the religious objection. So right now we're fighting it on the legal basis. We're hoping that we can get a court, the Ninth Circuit, to issue a favorable decision that allows this lawsuit to go forward, so that we can bring back those religious exemption requests for mandatory vaccination.
Hello. When the students are having their silent reading time with their library books in an Island Elementary School specifically, are we as teachers allowed to also bring out our Bible and read silent?
Yes, absolutely. That's during the quiet time. You can read, unless you're required to do some type of, you have other obligations connected to that, but by all means.
And this is while we're still teaching. Break time with the students in the classroom. I'm just making sure.
Yeah. So if it's during instructional time, if you are supposed to be, watching the class, then that's a little bit of a gray line, because if it's during instructional time, you need to make sure that you're honoring those commitments that are required of you during instructional time. So if you need to be grading papers, or if it's in that aspect, then you would need to make sure that you're honoring your commitments first, because that is during instructional time.
So is there anything against the law that says I cannot do it during instructional time? Does it have to be during my break time or lunchtime?
Yeah, so that would be the aspect of making sure that you, as in those videos that were shown earlier, were fantastic. So you absolutely can read your Bible in your personal time. When it comes to instructional time, there's a limit on what you can do. So if you would otherwise just be sitting there, you're not required to do something, then yes, you can pull out your Bible. You're not, endorsing it or teaching it or presenting it to children, then that would be fine.
Can I say something?
As a teacher myself, formerly, instructional time is also modeling behaviors for students. So you're modeling your leisure recreational reading, so that would be instructional.
Are counselors and school secretaries allowed to change the
sex status of a student, and the nickname of a student in the Aries platform. So in my district on August 12th, as a board member who is formerly a teacher in my district, we have a policy about identity support plans. And I asked, even though I'm a minority board member, I asked, I have parents asking me questions because I keep bringing this policy up in board meetings. They ask me questions that I don't know the answer for. So how can I represent my constituents if I don't know the answer of how are these gender support plans? What's the process? Because according to a public record, 260 kids have already requested a gender change in my districts and unified starting in 4th grade, with or without parent knowledge. So August 12th, we had a lawyer come and bring it to the light. And I asked those questions. Who are these? They call them IDSPs, Identity Support Plan Facilitators, or Fs. Who are they? And they couldn't really give me the answer, but they said there was about one designated per site. And I'm assuming it's a counselor or maybe an administrator. And then they said they have to go through 2 hours of mandated training on how to become an identity support plan facilitator. I have requested to get that. I haven't gotten it yet, but my superintendent said that it has to be the majority of the board, a consensus to get that. So, I said, so this Tuesday's meeting, I'm going to ask publicly again and say, can I get a consensus of the board of how many people here want to inform parents about how to do this, because they want to know. I'm just going to put it on them. But as far as we did do a public records request, and I can send it to you because in Anaheim, they actually gave us the whole way that they are hiding this in Aries from parents, their whole process. So if you email me, I'll send it to you.
I also just want to add, we are currently looking to file a lawsuit. I know there's already some ongoing challenges to AB 1955, which is the policy that says that school districts do not adopt policies that compel, employees to disclose information to parents about their students' gender transition. What we're looking for is a school district that has a policy that prohibits this disclosure to parents. And we want a counselor or someone that basically objects to that policy and wants to share that information. Not all school districts have that policy.
We do.
You do. So if you're a school counselor in what school district? Santa Ana, contact us, because we need someone that's willing to take a stand and say, I'm not okay with this policy. I want to disclose that to parents. But your school district is not allowing you to.
There's a Santa Ana teacher. Go, Darren.
Okay, sorry, this kind of piggybacks on that a little bit. Last year, towards the end of the year, during my contracted school day, during a staff meeting, we had to sit through a presentation from an LGBT liaison for the district. So somebody at the district is getting paid to do this, and about identity support plans and basically what we were allowed to share with parents and things like that. Am I allowed to, or how do I ask for an exemption for that? Because again, I don't want to lie to parents, and again, and most teachers don't know that they can opt out if they can opt out.
That's come talk to me after, because if you're in a school district that has a policy that specifically prohibits that, we would say that that's in violation of Mahmood. Now, Mahmood dealt with curriculum, and there's a lot of room to expand on Mahmood's holding. But if the Supreme Court says that a school district has to notify parents about LGBTQ curriculum, why would a school district not be required to notify parents about their students' gender social transition? And so when you're in a school district that says you're not allowed to share this information with parents, that's a direct conflict with your religious beliefs, one, to not lie to parents, but also your conviction to not affirm this ideology. So I would encourage you to reach out to us so we can talk some more about that.
I am concerned about Assembly Bill 495, the family preparedness Plan Act, and, we have until August 29th to let the legislature and Gavin Newsom to oppose that bill, but, it's going to hit the schools within 6 weeks or so, and, if it's signed into law. What can concerned citizens, parents, educators do to not allow that? And you guys can explain it. Thank you.
Good question. The bill is in suspense, so I don't think it's an issue for another year. So keep the letters coming and let people know. So don't stop it. But it is in suspense, so it's died for this year. It's a 2-year bill. Yeah. So we can work on some others that aren't in suspense yet, and just keep that one on the back burner and just keep fighting it.
Resurrect it, exactly. You want to explain it a bit?
Yeah, so suspense means that it's been put to the side. It can be resurrected at any time, so it's important to keep your eyes on it. I don't actually know the exact time frame or timing in terms of how suspense works and when it dies. I don't know if one of you might actually know that. I actually don't. However, it's a bill it's not dead. It's still there. They usually use this as a way to say, like, they're going to go rewrite or look at it or maybe revisit or talk to more people. But it's still important to write and let your legislators know that you oppose this bill. There was a huge rally last Tuesday with an incredible turnout, and that's what makes movement. And so, contacting legislators, filing opposition letters, advocates filed an opposition letter to AB 495, and talking about it. I think a lot of times, especially when it comes to bills, because they're very long, they're boring to read, people don't realize what's tucked into those bills. And so this bill specifically was framed as compassionate and a helpful bill, a needed bill for immigrant children. That may have been the initial thought behind the bill, but when you read the text of the bill, it is so dangerous. It's so much broader than that. That is not what the language states. And so it's absolutely important to continue to let your legislators know that you oppose that. But right now it's in suspense. It's like in limbo. It's not forgotten about. It's not something that we can just say we won. It's a victory. But it's not an immediate concern right now.
It's for Jessica. I have a couple of young people I know that are want to go into education. And I have one that just became a teacher. What can I tell them to advise them they don't end up in a situation like yours? What do we say to those young people that want to go into education?
I'm always going to say to follow God's lead. If that's where the Lord has called them to enter into the field of education, they need to be obedient to Him. Things don't go well when we disobey God. But I'm also not going to advise people to not end up in the situation I was in, because the situation I found myself in was an opportunity from the Lord to put my faith into action and to impact the nation and the realm of education and protect children and parental rights, and the list goes on. So I'm never going to necessarily say to try to avoid, it sounds kind of bad, but avoid being fired, because sometimes that's what we need to happen, so that we can put a lawsuit forth and hopefully change law, like I believe Lori's lawsuit is going to do. Again, I'm always going to advise following the Lord's lead and putting your faith into action, even in the classroom.
Yes. I would just encourage them to be involved in like gateways to better education, advocates for faith and freedom, so they know the information so that they're educated as they become educators. Yeah.
Next question. Okay. E.D. Hirsch, who wrote the 1987 bestseller Cultural Literacy, has developed a content-rich curriculum, the K-8 curriculum called Core Knowledge. Do any schools actually use that curriculum?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I've not heard.
Hello, I hail from Los Angeles Unified School District. And this current school I'm at, I hear a lot of anti-American rhetoric. It's very disturbing dating as a Christian to enter. I have to be really, guarded in prayer. And so what would be the best advice to, I try not to react or make facial gestures or I try not to roll my eyes. And even in our meetings, we have meetings every Tuesday. There's always a time reserved for our union, and that's so hard to listen to every Tuesday. Like, I have to pray during their announcements because it's anti-American, anti-God, anti-president, anti-everything. And so it's really hard to be in a school district like that. That's where I'm at currently. So what would you say is the best way to handle anti-American colleagues? And most of the time I'm quiet, but I just need more like guidance. It's like, am I allowed to say, hey, this shouldn't be your place to be political and say how much you hate the president? Because I can tell my students hate the president and they verbalize it. And so, because I have to be on a more neutral side, I just say, hey, hate is a very strong word. But those are kids. So how do I address that to a grown adults with degrees, with masters, and they speak just like the children do many times?
As for the students, you are in education, and that is what you're there to do, is to educate. So I would say if the students are, speaking these things that are false, maybe take it as an opportunity. And it's very important that we don't allow our emotions to get too involved and remind ourselves we are speaking to educate, not to, indoctrinate or, even evangelize, but to educate. And so I think you could use those conversations when you're hearing students or they're even coming to you and telling you these things that are just false and creating anti-American students. Use it as an opportunity to educate and say, hey, we're the most blessed nation, on the face of this earth, and here's why. As for the colleagues, that's, I would say, probably the trickier part. Does anyone want to?
What I would say is, I doubt you're alone. There's other people on your campus that feel just like you, and I would seek them out. There's different ways. You might ask them what news station they, listen to, or you might look at their car, type the car stickers on it. And I think you'll feel more comfortable if you have allies. And at some point, are you in the union?
Nope.
Oh, good for you. Well, that's brave. But are there if you have others that are not in the union, those might be allies. But I think that might be helpful, is to find allies that maybe together you could do something. Maybe you could put together a club, just do something that lets people know how you feel and that America is a wonderful place and how blessed we are to be here.
I'd like to answer on two levels. One would be a teacher level, and one would be a school board member level. So as a teacher, are you in a district with a lot of Hispanic?
It's about 99%. It's starting in very immigrant, like first generation.
Okay, and are you involved in a church?
I am.
Okay, so this is what I did. I contacted, I have a lot of immigrant friends from all over. Well, here's one right here from Romania. And just what he said in the beginning, I came to a terrible American, but just being sarcastic. But having immigrants, as I don't know what you teach, but having immigrants come in and speak to your students and saying what they had to do to get here and why did they want to get here and why did they sacrifice so much to come to America if it's so inherently evil and racist and bigoted and all these bad things that they're putting out. But they need to hear it from firsthand experience. And they need to hear the feelings behind it, not just what you think. I as a board member, I'll tell you what I experienced. And I had my board president. I've been a board member in this district since December. And he started with, right after Trump, won presidency, just very vile things against Trump. And basically what I did is because I taught in my district, I knew a lot of immigrant teachers from my district who voted for Trump. And I asked them, do you guys feel offended by what this president just said publicly in your district? And they said, yes. I said, then give me comments and I'll read it for you. So 3 immigrants from Mexico, I read their comments out loud. And one of them said, you need to cease and desist from your comments, because in our non-discrimination policy, it says you cannot discriminate based on political affiliation or viewpoints. So look at your non-discrimination policy in your school district, because they can actually, you can write a uniform complaint. And that is a very important document for teachers and for parents and for students for discrimination or harassment. And if you're feeling harassed based on your political views, I would suggest you get that rolling right away. And it's stopped. That president, no more. He does not do that anymore.
She means the president of the board.
I'm sorry. The president of the board. Trump has not visited us yet.
All right, let me ask the final question. How teachers, and maybe this is only possible in more conservative districts, but is it possible for teachers to band together and create a different union and not be represented by, like, why is it just, one teachers union that's representing these teachers in front of the school district collective bargaining agreements? Is there a way to overcome the unions at a local level?
Well, I think one of the best ways is to get people to leave the unions. I mean, that's where you have to start, is to leave that union. Then there is an opening. There is somebody out there who is creating a union. I know his name has come across my email. Sandra, do you know who he is? Or
no, but he's decertifying.
Okay.
He decertified the union.
Yeah. So that's, the best way is if you decertify the union, then they lose their power and all that money that they put into all those elections against the people that you love and support.
50% plus 1 vote.
Yeah, 50%. If anybody Sandra is like an expert on unions. She's a teacher for 39 years. She is the chair of the Right to Work Foundation. So if you guys don't know Sandra Crandall, and she is she's a board member in Fountain Valley and one of the most respected board members. That she does her homework. She's just brilliant, kind. And so if you have questions about unions, I would refer you to go check out Sandra.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Let's give it up for this panel. All right. I'm going to invite Mark Schneider to come back up, and we're going to continue with the federal education landscape. And then after that, we're going to continue on.
So we keep getting this question that comes up all the time. We have a new president. He's very much, at least educationally, conservative. He's the head of the executive branch of the federal government. Why can't he just make an executive order saying, we're not going to do this wokeism stuff anymore. We're only going to have good policies in our schools. And why isn't that the law of the land? So we heard a little bit of this discussion earlier today. Just to briefly expand on this, what is the bright line? What's the division between federal and state and local law? It's not advancing. A little bit of law school 101. So we are a nation of what's called enumerated powers, which means that the powers, this is the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the power, or to the people. So the powers that are given to the under the Constitution that are not spelled out belong to the states or to the people, individuals. Our Constitution, in terms of countries, let alone the size of America, is one of the smallest that's ever been written. It's a very concise document. But what powers the Constitution has is laid out very simply there. A mention was made earlier also of this, what's called the Supremacy Clause. And here's basically what's meant by that. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land.
and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So, very powerful statement that the laws under the Constitution are the supreme law of the land. I wish it were quite that simple in application.
Yeah.
Because there was a case that goes all the way back to 1819, famous case, McCulloch versus Maryland, where the United States decided we needed a national bank. And one of the branches just happened to be in the state of Maryland. And Maryland took offense to that, so they tried to do two things. Number one, they tried to tax the bank for the revenue that it was making in the state. And they challenged the very premise upon which the United States created this short-lived bank. Well, the Supreme Court said that Congress can pass laws under the Constitution, in this case the Necessary and Proper Clause, that preempt conflicting state laws. So that's kind of the bottom line. If Congress passes a law, a federal law, that preempts a state law, then that federal law controls. Now, it's a little more complicated than that in application. I'll just quickly walk you through this. So this is the first question that needs to be asked. Is there a federal law that applies to a particular education issue? If there isn't, and if there's a state law that governs, the state law governs unless it's found to be unconstitutional. If yes, then another question, is the federal law constitutional? Because not all federal laws are. We have federal laws that are passed in Congress that are challenged in the courts all the time. If the law is not found to be constitutional, then the state law controls. If it is constitutional, then another question arises. Did Congress intend to preempt existing state law or future state law on that particular subject? If yes, then the federal law controls. If no, does the federal law, does it intend to occupy the whole field? If yes, then it controls. If no, another question, is there any conflict with state law? If no, then both laws apply, what's called concurrent jurisdiction. If yes, then finally, federal law controls. Okay, so it's kind of nuanced. No, it's not a straightforward answer. It hardly ever is. So this begs the question, what about Trump's executive orders? Well, he's made quite a few of them since he's been in office, and I expect he's going to make more of them going forward. And here's just a few examples. Executive order improving education outcomes by empowering parents, states, and communities, directs the Secretary of Education to facilitate closing the education department. Well, can the president really do that? Well, he certainly is doing a great job defunding the education department by about 50% and counting. He's laid off about half of its workforce, actually closer to 3/4 of its workforce. But he can't completely eliminate it because the education department was created under the Carter administration by an act of Congress. So, and it also, he can do something that is in opposition to other laws that Congress has passed, like the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the Higher Education Act, which were created, I think, in 1965. And in these acts, there's a lot of civil rights language that's intended in these statutes to control things like money that the federal government gives to help fund and nurture schools, including state and local schools. What about this executive order? Ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schooling. Wonderful. Fantastic. We're all for that. Requires federal fund recipients to comply with laws prohibiting certain teachings on race or sex and enforces civil rights laws against hostile environments. Well, why aren't we seeing that? Well, we are starting to see it in some regard. But again, The executive order cannot override federal civil rights statutes like Title VI or Title IX, which protect against discrimination. So this is going to work itself out in the courts. They will have to decide what the lines are between Trump's executive orders and what authority he has to make them, and existing state and local law. And finally, ensuring transparency in higher education admissions, against DEI preferences in admissions, and reforms accreditation process. Same analysis. It must comply with statutes like the Higher Education Act, and it cannot override Supreme Court rulings that has weighed in on our civil rights laws. So, all to say that yes, where the Supremacy Clause occupies the entire field, and the Supreme Court has weighed in its favor and spoken emphatically, that federal law controls. But we shouldn't just think that because Trump has signed an executive order that all is going to be wonderful and there's still no controversy. Hope that's helpful.